Many of the prohibitions and requirements in the Old Testament seem pointless to the modern Western mind. A case in point is the ban on eating pork, Leviticus 11:7. After all, to most people, a good pork loin served with apples and nuts makes for a very fine meal. Understanding the purpose of the Mosaic Law, generally, and the cultural view of swine in particular, is essential to appreciating the law's restriction on eating pork. The law given to the Israelites had a number of important purposes. Following God's prescribed actions was not to be a simple ritual. Rather, obedience to the law expressed a strong internal faith in God and healthy fear of Him. Deuteronomy 30 records the blessings God would grant Israel if they followed Him, and the curses He would enact if they did not. These blessings and curses were an integral part of the covenant between God and Israel, so the law was the basis of a conditional covenant. Also, the law, including the prohibition against eating pork, stood as a unique sign of the privilege granted to Israel, setting them apart from their pagan neighbors. The whole world in Moses' time was idolatrous, with each nation believing in many deities. The forbidding of eating certain foods, such as pork, distinguished between what would later be termed Jew and Gentile. The dietary restrictions further indicated that Israel was a separate nation and a chosen people. Saying no to eating pork and other practices of the pagans helped the Israelites to break free from idolatry, a sin they assuredly struggled with. See Exodus 32. Under the Old Testament law, not only was eating pork forbidden, but even touching the meat of swine made one ritually unclean. Deuteronomy 14:8. This detail further insulated the Israelites from pagan practices. The Canaanites kept herds of swine and sacrificed them to idols. God wanted His people to distance themselves from all such activity. Then there are the hygienic concerns related to the law's dietary restrictions, including the ban on eating pork. It is well known today that pork carries any number of diseases, and the meat requires stricter cooking techniques than other meats such as beef or poultry. In Moses' day, there was no knowledge of microscopic pathogens, and the cultural norm was to eat raw or undercooked meat. Leviticus 19:20-6. Of course, eating undercooked pork would have posed a significant health threat to the Israelites, but God providentially protected them through the Mosaic Law. If you pay attention to His commands and keep all His decrees, I will not bring on you any of the diseases I brought on the Egyptians, for I am the Lord, who heals you. Exodus 15:20-6. Jesus said that nothing we eat makes us unclean spiritually speaking. Look what He said in Mark 7:18-19. Can you also not understand? Jesus said to him, do you not realize that nothing that enters a man can return to the dark because it does not enter his heart, but his stomach, and is then eliminated? By saying this, Jesus declared pure all foods. So I need you to understand something in the Old Testament. In addition to the 10 Commandments, God and the Jewish people, several rules to show that they were different from other people. These rules were moral laws and dealt with the behavior and hearts of people. Others were legal rules to bring order and discipline to the people, and they also had rules and ceremonies that showed the external difference between the Jewish people and the rest, such as the circumcision of sacrifices, and also the prohibition of pork. When a person complied with these rules and ceremonies, they demonstrated that they had a commitment to God, but if they did not have a true change in their heart, these rules had no value at all. That Jesus often criticized the Pharisees because they gave more importance to ceremonial rules than moral rules that have a purpose of changing character. Furthermore, when the law of Moses knew that something was unclean, most of the time she was saying that it was something dirty from a physical point of view, and how at the time people didn't have the scientific knowledge that we have today. God put hygiene laws in place so that the baby people could be healthier. At that time, pigs were raised among the people, and people had no idea and prepared themselves, which is why they were able to contract many diseases. Even today, let's take certain precautions. I believe that this is why this one was seen as commanded in the Old Testament, but today it is not a sin to eat pork, because when Jesus died and rose again, He purified us in a way that no ceremonial law achieves our salvation. It is based on faith and not on following rules. It is very important for you to know this. Just read the Gospels and you will see that Jesus came to deal with what is most important, which is our heart. So if you think that you still shouldn't eat pork, I respect you, but I just ask that you also don't condemn anyone who has another opinion, because no one goes to hell if they eat it or don't eat it. This meat, and the Bible tells us not to enter into unnecessary publications. Okay, if you liked this video, share it with your family, friends, and subscribe to my channel. May God bless you mightily. I'll wait for you in the next video. A big hug.